Hello. Happy Monday. I am back with a solo episode, mainly because I was running yesterday and there was just a lot of stuff that I felt like I needed to unpack for myself personally, but that I also wanted to share, not just specific to running, but kind of across fitness and how your physical choices impact your fitness and your mental and emotional stability, I'll say, play into exercise and living a healthy lifestyle. So, especially if you are a runner, of course, this will be a little bit more geared towards running, or I will say larger intensity workouts from a fueling perspective. Once I get into the emotional and mental aspect, I think it applies across the board to any type of exercise you're doing, whether it's a shorter or a longer run, or just a traditional strength training day, or a group fitness class. And I'll touch a little bit. I don't want to talk a lot about group fitness, but I will touch a little bit from an energies perspective on how your experience at a group fitness class can alter your workout. So let's just dive right in. Here we go. I'm super excited to talk about this because I truly thought about it for my entire run yesterday. And I think it's important to think through and digest that everything is connected in our bodies. It is not just fitness is over here from a physical perspective, and then your eating habits and the way that you take care of yourself outside of your fitness are over here. They're one common goal, and if you're not aligning those two things, you're probably not getting as much out of your fitness journey as you think that you are, or as you could be. And that's not to say that you're not reaching goals, but I think the more you can align across the board of physical health, meaning physical fitness as well as your diet, and mental and emotional health, you'll notice such a shift. So I'm going to start just with a comparison because this is kind of where my mind was going yesterday on my run, because I was comparing two long runs that I had done 1 week apart, 1 week and 1 day apart. So I'm going to break down the differences in the two runs because I think it's so interesting that in the same body, physically, I felt so different only 5 days apart, and a lot went into that. Okay, so just to give a little background on the two runs to kind of set the stage of why they were so different, and then I'm going to get into the different nuances of why I think they felt so different and my pace was so different. So last Friday, I ran my 10-mile training run for a marathon that I'm doing in October. So I'm currently training for this marathon. Each weekend I do a long run. So I was up to my 10 miles last Friday. I was visiting Gina, my co-host, in Philly, and I knew I had to do my training run. I have run and trained for my last marathon in Philly, so I know the trail really well that I was going to run on. It wasn't necessarily new terrain, but I knew it was going to feel different because I'd been running in upstate New York. So I did my 10-mile run in Philly last Friday. I broke that run up, which the reason that I did that I think will become important later when I talk about energies. And then I did my 11-mile run yesterday. So only 1 extra mile, but still a little bit longer. And I did that in upstate New York on the trail that I've been running on in upstate New York. So set the scene, 6 days apart. One run was in Philadelphia, one run was in upstate New York. So that's where I'll start. I will share little screenshots on the screen of my paces from the runs because I think that's the easiest way visually to see, and for me I felt it in my body, but when you can see the paces and how different they were, it makes a lot of sense how all this played into it. So my pace from my Philly 10-miler was 10:11, and I did stop in between. So I did 5 miles out, took a break, and probably was moving my body but not running for a good 30 minutes, which I thought would help my muscles rest and give me a little bit of a breather. And then I went 5 miles back to Gina's apartment. So that pace was 10:11. Yesterday, my 11-miler, I ran 6 miles out, a little less than 6 miles out, and then a little bit more than 5 back. And I didn't stop once, and my pace was 9:04. My goal going out yesterday was 9:30, 9:40, because I am trying to run my marathon in October in under 4 hours. The marathon I'm running is also, the elevation goes down throughout the race. So I'm not super concerned about my pace, but I wanted to be a little bit faster than I was in Philly. So set the stage. Those are my paces. 10:11, 6 days later with a longer run, 9:04. 9:04 is very fast for me to hold consistently in general. Doesn't matter how long the run is. So I was very impressed that I ran 11 miles, and most of those miles in the beginning were under 9-minute miles. So let's get into it. Why do I think this happened, and how can you apply this to life in general, fitness in general, all the things? So first, I want to talk about the physical aspect of it, the fueling, the diet, what I did physically leading up to the runs, things like that, that I think impacted them, and how you can carry that into any sort of activity that you're doing. So again, fueling wise, like I said, this is going to be a little bit more tailored to, you're doing a long run, you're exerting a lot of energy, you're burning a lot of calories, you actually need the fuel. So take it with a grain of salt if you're just like doing your normal everyday activity. So first thing is the fuel. Last week, I drove from upstate New York to Philly on Thursday afternoon, evening, which is about a 5-hour drive. On that drive for dinner, I had a chomps stick or some kind of beef stick, I don't know, and a protein bar. So while I did hit my protein goals, didn't really have enough carbs that day. And quite honestly, wasn't even thinking about that. I just wanted to make sure I hit my protein goals and didn't even really think about the fact that I was running 10 miles the next morning. So that was that aspect of it. The morning of, from my 10-mile run in Philly, I did not eat anything. So I went out unfueled. Terrible idea. And during the race, I did have my goos. So if you're a runner, you know what those are. If you're not a runner, it's just little packets of gel type things. I only use the chocolate ones if you are a runner, mainly because of all of the videos I've seen on TikTok of people trying any other flavor and they look horrified. So I will stick with chocolates. They're not the most pleasant thing to eat. They're kind of sticky and gross on a run, but They have sodium in them, they have caffeine, amino acids, and carbs. So gives me what I need. So that was the first aspect of it, was the physical food fueling was not there. Did not do it. Did not think about it. Did not consider it. It was not good. Second, the rest and recovery of my body on Thursday. I ran on Thursday because I had moved my long run to Friday intentionally because I knew I was going to Philly for the weekend and I wanted to get my run out of the way. So I had just done a tempo run on Thursday. My legs were not probably fully recovered. I also then drove 5 hours. So I was sitting in a car. If you're someone that sits at a desk or in a car a lot, your hip flexors are so just shortened so much and they get so tight. So then to go from sitting to then running and you're pulling the hip flexors as you're extending, it's just a lot on the hips. So the combo of running and then sitting where I wasn't recovering my hips, they tightened even more. And then I ran. I didn't feel it necessarily that much during the run, I would say, but I'm sure it impacted to some extent. And then sleep. I always sleep better at home. It's just, it is what it is. But I think I also was tired from traveling. I pushed myself up to stay a little up. I pushed myself to stay up a little bit later. Not anything crazy, but late for me because I was visiting Gina. So then, of course, when I'm here, it's a little bit different. And then the weather. We can't do anything about it, unfortunately, but I got up very early. I woke up on my own, so it's not like I set an alarm to force myself up, but I still was up and out at like 6 o'clock, 6:15. So it was a little bit on the early side, and the weather and the air was just so different in Philly than it's been in upstate New York that I think it just hit my body like a ton of bricks. It was thick air. It was really hard to breathe. It was really warm out. It was a lot, and my body was not having it. So that was the physical aspects of what I did wrong, because I don't want to blame everything on energy, which I'll get into. I feel like it played a really big part in my runs, because even when I have fueled appropriate in the past, I've never run this fast and felt so good for a long run. So anyway, that was what I did wrong physically. Fast forward to yesterday for my 11 miler. I started preparing for my run on Friday. I was extremely intentional about what I ate. So you'll hear a lot of different things about you need to carb load, you need to do this, you need to do that. You need to take into account what activity are you actually doing. So 11 miles, it's a lot. I knew I was going to be burning a lot of calories, but it's not a marathon. So you should be intentionally adjusting your day before fuel for exercise based on the exercise, as well as afterwards, which we'll get to. So on Friday, I made sure I had sourdough bread with my breakfast, which I don't do always. I'll have it every couple of days, but typically I'm just having eggs, sausage, avocado, cheese, whatever. But I'm not always having carbs in the form of grains, I'll say. So I had sourdough bread with my breakfast. I had a massive amount of sushi for lunch, which was a later lunch. So I think that helped as well. I had lunch probably at like 2 or 2:30, which is late for me. And then I had pasta with vodka sauce and a breaded chicken cutlet for dinner. I did not overdo it. It was enough food that I was full, but I was not doubled over in pain because I had just eaten so much that I was uncomfortable. You do not need to overeat to fuel your body the day before a run or any exercise. So make sure that you're eating enough. You'll probably want to up your carbs a little bit because that's what your body is going to use first as fuel. So the reason people say that is if you don't have carbs in your system, your body starts to pull from other things for fuel. And that's when you start to feel it a little bit more. So if you have the right amount of carbs, which is your quick fuel source, your body's going to pull from that. I also like to think about it as grains versus non-grain carbs. So I eat non-grain carbs every single day. I'm eating fruit, vegetables, things like that. I'm still getting carbs from those things. Grain carbs, pasta, bread, rice, those are your quickly broken down carbs that will help you a little bit more when it comes to your run and fueling. So that's also important. So then Saturday morning, I had a bowl of 7 Sundays cereal. So I looked at the nutrition facts. It was minimal on the protein, minimal on the fat. I think it's 26 grams of protein per serving. So I had one serving. I knew it was good carbs. I think I said protein. 26 grams of carbs per serving. And I had that with a little bit of milk. So I knew I was getting a little protein to help my muscles recover, but I was focused more on the carbs. I also had some coffee. I let myself have some time. So that leads me into the resting sleep. I slept at home. I let myself have time in the morning. I didn't get up and rush. I had my coffee, I had my cereal, I took my time, I went to the bathroom. If you're a runner, you know, that's like a huge thing that we don't want to talk about, but it's so important. You feel so much better. So I kind of just let my body like reset and wake up on its own time until I felt like I was ready to go. And that was about probably 7:15. And then during my run, I fueled the exact same way. So I had one gel every 3 miles, I think. So mile 3, mile 6, and mile 9. I might have skipped the last one because I was feeling really, really good. And sometimes too much like pushes me over the edge. The other thing is I wore a running vest in Philly, which was the first time I wore it. It honestly didn't bother me that much, but I was carrying a lot more water in the vest than I was in my very small, like 16-ounce water bottle on my belt, which is what I used in upstate New York. So maybe that played a factor. I don't know. I'm not a huge water drinker when I'm running. I make sure I hydrate before and after, but just like a little bit of water with electrolytes kind of helps push me through depending on the length of the run. So fueling is our first physical. That's what you want to look at before any workout. So you want to think carbs before, protein after. Protein helps you recover, carbs help fuel you. So that's like the basics of it. And then you can tone that down and tone it up based on how much exertion you're putting into your exercise. Rest and sleep. My body was fully recovered. All I did on Friday was yoga and walking. So my body had time to fully recover from my Thursday run before I did my long run on Saturday. Whereas in Philly, I didn't give it that kind of time, unfortunately. And then the weather. So upstate New York weather is a little bit different than Philly weather. One of the reasons that we moved. But I also just got lucky. It was just terrible, sticky, hot, humid in Philly. And yesterday for my run, it was 50 degrees on a mid-July day at 7:15 in the morning. It got warm as I ran. Of course, the sun came up It started to get a little hotter, but I felt great. The air felt great. I could breathe normally. I didn't feel like I was gasping for my breath, and it was a full breath that I was able to take. It wasn't like short, shallow breaths like I was doing in Philly. So that's the physicality of it, kind of the spectrum that you want to look at before you exercise, especially if you're running. Are you fueling appropriately? Are you thinking about all of those fueling outlets? So the day before, the morning of, and during your run, if you're running for a workout, are you doing carbs before and protein after? Are you getting enough rest? Are you getting enough sleep? Sleep is so important. I'm not going to tell you need 7 or 8 hours even. It's just what you feel refreshed. And are you letting your body go to sleep when it's tired? And are you waking up when your body's ready to wake up? And then the weather, which we can't control, but it plays a big impact. So if it is, I drank a ton more water last week than I did this week just because of how the air was, and I needed it. And I was sweating probably more on my run in Philly because it was just hotter and more humid. So that's the physical. If you are just here for the basics, that's the part that I want you to focus on. If you are into aligning your mental and your emotional with your physical, here we go. It's gonna get a little woo-woo, but I promise that's not my thing either. And I felt so aligned, I'll say, when I was running yesterday, that I felt like it was important to talk about this. And I think it also just helped because I had these 2 runs to compare, and the energy was so different. So here we go. I think, and I'll talk about group fitness as well, like I mentioned in the beginning, the energy that you have going into a workout is indicative of how your workout is going to be and the result of what that workout will come to. So that can mean a ton of things, but I think what we need to do is really look inward as you're preparing for any type of exercise and make sure you are in the best possible headspace. And if you're not, how can you use that as additional fuel for your exercise? So I'm going to use my runs as an example, but I want to quickly talk about group fitness and how certain things with group fitness can alter the way that you feel during a workout, because this has actually happened to me since moving. And I think as a personal trainer, of course, I'm a little bit biased to what I think a group fitness class should be and how I think an instructor should act and be and interact and all of the things. So walking into a group fitness class, you are putting your workout in the hands of the instructor in a sense. You need to find the instructors and the workouts that fuel you so that your workout is actually stronger because of that. And you can feel it as an instructor. If you're an instructor, you can sense the room. I was actually in a yoga class this week, on Friday, I believe. And I don't know what we were doing, but she could just sense that we were all not in it. Like the energy was just off, and she had us stop and reset because she's like, I don't know if it's me. I don't know if it's Friday. Like something is off. We got to like shift this. So being in tune with that as an instructor is super important. But as a client or a member going to a class, there's a couple things that you can do to shift this energy. And I think the first thing is, before you step into that class, like you need to decide what type of workout you're going to have. Not if you're going to like the workout, not if you're going to like the instructor. If it's an instructor, obviously you know that you'll vibe with their energy regardless. But if you're trying something new, you have to kind of run your own workout in your mind from a mental and emotional standpoint and not let the workout itself, the instructor, the space dictate how you're going to feel. And I've experienced recently where I've gone to classes, the instructors are just not giving the energy that I need, and I know all of us need, that's why we go to group fitness, or not correcting form or things that I notice as a personal trainer. And I think other people may notice it subconsciously. You may not realize that that's what's the thing that's bothering you because you can't pinpoint it, but you may just sense that the energy is off. Just try to go back to whatever your intention was for doing the workout. Like, I want to get stronger. I wanted to push my body today. Like, there's so many things that could impact your workout, and you need to just find a way to stick with the intention that you initially set for yourself. And that goes for any form of exercise, whether you're going to a gym alone, whether you're doing a group fitness class. There's so many outside factors that can impact you. Like I'm talking about the weather, my location, like all of those things I had no say over, and they still impacted my run. And it may impact you anyway, but try to get the most out of your exercise. So let's get into how I felt, my energies, and hopefully you can apply this to if you're a runner specifically, just trying to keep this in mind, but really any workout that you do and where you go and who you go with. So my Philly workout, some of you, depends who you are listening and where you know me from in life, but a lot of you know that I worked at a gym in Philly, and that gym happened to be 5 miles from Gina's apartment. So I thought, planning my run, awesome. 5 miles away from Gina, I have to run 10. I'm gonna run 5. I'm gonna stop in. I'm gonna see my people. I'm gonna fill my cup. I'm gonna run 5 back. I think from the moment I left on my run, and I don't want to blame everything on energies because I know that I also put myself in a bad position with the way that I lacked in fueling and resting my body and all of the things that played into it. But I think my body was telling me as I started my run, like, you mentally and emotionally have moved on from this part of your life. And I think that's a hard thing to acknowledge and digest if you're somebody who has moved recently, changed jobs, like any of the things. For something that was so important to me and a huge chunk of my life for 4 years, and I hadn't been back there since moving in April. So almost 3 months. And I was excited. I didn't tell a whole lot of people that I was coming because I was like, this will be great. I'll get to see people, surprise them. And it was. I got there after my first 5 miles. It was amazing to see people, but it wasn't the burst that I was expecting. If you're a runner, you'll understand if you're in the middle of a race and you're like getting to that point where you're like, I'm struggling. It hurts. I need to stop. I want to walk. And you see your people, your body just digs so deep and finds that added layer of energy that you have, and you keep pushing. And that's what I kind of thought was going to happen. Like, oh, I'm going to see my people and I'm going to get that little oomph to keep me going. I think my body was telling me, my mental state was telling me, my emotional intelligence was telling me, like, you did your part here, you lived your life here, and there is still that emotional tie, but you have moved on mentally and emotionally. You've grown, and this isn't your home anymore. Your home is somewhere else, which does not mean that you can't still have love for a space. But I think without realizing, my energy was being drained throughout the run. First, with the anticipation of getting there and seeing people. And I think I was actually probably overwhelmed and nervous in a sense, even though I felt excited. And I think after leaving, I just felt the energy shift in me and in that place. And it was a place that I haven't been in 3 months, and I don't work there, and I don't have the same relationship with that physical place anymore that I did 3 months ago, because it isn't a part of me anymore. It's a part of my past, and it's a huge part of who I am today and my fitness background and everything I've learned and all of those things. And I'm so thankful for it. But I think my mental and emotional energy was telling me, like, you have moved on. So it was just interesting. And this did not hit me until I was running yesterday. So fast forward to my run yesterday. Like I said before, I went out, and after that run in Philly last week, I was really nervous about hitting a sub-4 marathon in October. When I say I was going as fast as I possibly could in Philly, and I just felt so depleted and drained. I was so depleted and drained. Like, I could not have given an ounce more energy no matter what. There was times that I was walking. There was times that I was like, I'm not going to finish. And again, a lot of that goes back to the physical things. I don't want to blame this all on energies, but I think it is so important that your mental and emotional state plays such a big role into your fitness journey. So fast forward to my run yesterday. I went out, goal was like 9:30, 9:40. I even thought that was going to be pushing it a little bit after my 10:11 pace last week. And I started off in a sweatshirt because it was a little chilly. So my watch was covered. And I said to myself, I'm not going to look until I hit each mile. So I'll look at what my pace is when I hit each mile. And I think my first mile, I want to say my first mile, I was probably at like 9:05, something along those lines. I felt like I went out slow. I was intentionally trying to not burn myself out. So I saw the 9:05 and I was like, I'm sprinting. I need to cool it. I'm going to be drained. And then mile 2 came and it was like 8:45. And then mile 3 was 8:45. And then mile 4 was 8:45. And it kind of ranged between 8:45 and 9, probably through mile 7. And then after mile 7, I started to kind of range between 9 and 9:10. But when I say I truly felt like I was operating at 60 or 70%, I could have kept going after 11 miles. Was I tired? Of course. Was I sweating and exhausted and sore? Yes. But there was not an ounce of me that felt like I needed to slow down. There was not an inch of my body that I was like, my hips are hurting, my hamstrings are hurting. I was sore and my legs were starting to feel heavy, but there was nothing in me that was telling me I need to slow down. And I really try to be in tune with my body because I am not breaking any records besides my own. And I'm not trying to get injured in this course of marathon training. So if my body was telling me to slow down, I would not have pushed for that 9:04 pace. And I just kept going. And every mile, it was around 9. And I got about 4 miles in, and that's when I started thinking about this stuff. I was like, this is so crazy that 6 days made such a big difference in runs that are only 1 mile different, a 10-mile run and an 11-mile run. My body did not change at all. My physical health did not change at all. My eating habits, other than the day before fuel, didn't change at all. I'm still the same person. Why was it that I was able to cut over a minute off of my average mile time? And I thought about the physical stuff that I talked about, and it was like, well, I didn't fuel, the weather was shitty, all the things. But then I was like, there's something else. It's not just that. And I just felt so at peace and calm yesterday. I felt like I was in my element. I felt like the universe, God, whatever you believe in, was just kind of telling me, this is your space. Like, this is where you're supposed to be, mentally, emotionally, and physically. And I felt so aligned in that. I just felt like I could almost see that my physical health was finally in line with my emotional and mental health. And I think all three of them were probably much lower than they should have been when I was living in Philly. And that is not to say that I did not absolutely love my time and the things I learned and the people I met in that 5-year span of my life. But I think every day I was draining my physical, mental, and emotional health rather than filling them up. And I think that run, for the first time being back in Philly after 3 months, all of that came rushing back. Like, when you lived here, you weren't treating your body properly. You weren't eating as well. You weren't working out for yourself. I was a personal trainer who wasn't working out because I didn't have the time. So I wasn't always working out. I was getting my steps. I was doing the basics, but I wasn't strength training. When I ran for my marathon, it felt like I had 3 full-time jobs. And my mental health was just going down, down, down because I was so tired. I felt like I didn't have time after work. I was done because I was working 2 jobs. And my emotional health, it was just a big toll because as an instructor or a trainer, that's such a huge part of your job, is taking on, or I won't say taking on, but working with your clients and becoming close with them and working with them not just on the physical, but on the mental and the emotional, even though I'm not a therapist and I never, ever gave my advice. But for me, I am someone who takes that on. So when people were really struggling, I was really struggling with them. And it was really hard for me to separate that. And I think when I went on that run, it just all came crashing back. Even though in the moment I didn't realize it, it was kind of my body's way of like being in its own trauma almost, which sounds really dramatic, but and I don't want to take that lightly because I'm not someone who's experienced big T trauma, but I think all of those little things that had like built up in me over the last 5 years, and then I separated myself from that, just came crashing back. And it really hit me hard when I was running in my new home, in my safe space, and I felt so good and so calm. And listen, I've done a million other long runs here. They just haven't been 11 miles. I've done 6, 7, 8, 9. I've done all those runs in upstate New York. So it's not to say that every run from here on out, I'm going to run that fast. But I think all of the things compiling on top of me having that experience running last week made my body realize that it's where it's supposed to be. And I think if I didn't have that experience running where I was just ready to give up, it's like, this is terrible. I've run on this trail a million times. I did every single long run in my Philly marathon training on that trail. Like, I knew the trail like the back of my hand. It's basically the same as far as being flat as my run is here. It's not like it was any different in that sense. And if I didn't experience that last week, I don't think I would have been able to fully accept that my mental and emotional health has moved on from that part of my life, which I knew already because I feel so much more at peace in my day-to-day life in upstate New York than I did in Philly, and a lot of factors went into that. But I think that helped me so much in my physical fitness because I finally absorbed that mentally and emotionally I'm in a much better place, which in turn physically I'm in a much better place. So I think there's those two sides to it. I think if you're someone who is training for something, like, you just got to push through and do it no matter where you are. But I think trying to acknowledge those things each day in whatever way makes sense for you, whether it's journaling, whether it's meditation, whether it's, I got a book recently that just kind of has like a little quote that I read that gets me thinking and gets my brain moving. But I think we all need that moment of clarity to say, I made the right decision, or this is the place that I'm supposed to be. And it will translate a lot to fitness. And that doesn't have to mean physically. It can mean in a relationship. It can mean friendships. If you end a friendship, if you end a relationship, if you just move into a new home, it doesn't have to be a new location. If you change jobs, like, any of the big changes that we're having in our lives impact our fitness in such a big way that we don't think about, especially when you're somebody who is in a routine. You just go and do it. And I would urge everyone to take a step back after you exercise, no matter what it is: yoga, Pilates, group fitness, strength training in a group, strength training on your own, running. After that bit of exercise, take a step back and just evaluate how you feel. Are you feeling good? What did you do to do that? And then just try to, piece by piece, start to tailor your life around that, because fitness, I always say, is a lifestyle. Health and wellness is a lifestyle, and this is why, because it's not just physical, and so many people make it just about that hour that you're exercising or 2 hours that you're running, and then they disconnect that piece of it from the rest of their life. And when you do that, you're not getting the full benefits that you could during the exercise part of it. So think about the foods you're eating. Think about how you're feeling mentally going into workouts. Think about what happens during the workout. Like, do you hate the instructor? Do you hate the gym? Is it crowded? Did somebody cut you off on a bike on the trail? Like, all these things play into it. But the most important part is it's a lifestyle. It's a holistic focus. And you need to somehow come back to your intention of, why are you doing this in the first place? Why are you exercising? Why are you training for the marathon? Why did you show up to the group fitness class? And maybe it's just to check it off the list. That's fine. But let's try to find a deeper meaning so you can start to align the physical, mental, and emotional aspects to truly make health and wellness your entire lifestyle. And on that note, thank you guys for listening to me yap for 45 minutes. If you have absolutely any questions about health and fitness, energies, all of the things, please let me know. If you like this episode, please let me know. If you want to hear more solo episodes from me, reach out. If you have any topic ideas, this you'll find on the Northern Comfort podcast. We have on Spotify and YouTube. So if you want to watch on YouTube, go for it. It was totally split between the poll. You guys wanted Spotify podcast and YouTube. So I'm going to upload it in both places. And if you have any other topics that you want me to dive into from a health and wellness perspective, please let me know. I hope you guys have a wonderful week. Happy Monday. I love you all, and I'll see you soon.